Hello, I am Liam Jones. I'm with Alana Wilson, and we are here to talk about her life and her service. So, I noticed on your your bio form, that you grew up in Quincy. You want to tell us anything about that?
More like I grew up in Milton, then we moved to Quincy like 2 years ago, I want to say. So, living in Milton, it's like a very small town that's just very close-knit. Like, it's a very small, nice little community. You grow up used to like diversity and all the nice things a small rich town can offer. But I actually went to high school in Canton, and that was just like a whole mingle of towns like Holbrook, Braintree, Randolph, so completely different like scenery. I got used to the real world by going to a vocational high school outside my town. So
Did you enjoy going to a VOTEC?
oh, definitely. Like, I actually learned like more about other people than in this small little community. So it was nice to actually like really learn like a trade instead of just, English, science, whatever they teach in schools.
The normal public school curriculum.
Yeah, I got to become like a certified nursing assistant, learn I actually didn't like the medical field, then go on to do things I actually like in college.
Now, growing up, you said that your whole family, like on your bioform, you mentioned that in your family you had a lot of family members who are military themselves,
Yeah.
including your mother.
Yeah.
What was it like with your mother?
Well, she got out when she was like in her 30s, so I wasn't born until she was like 40 years old, so yeah. That's the norm in my family. We usually wait till like 39, 40 to have children. So same thing with my grandmother. That's actually how my grandfather and grandmother met. Was my grandfather was a soldier in the U.S. Army, went over to Japan, found a wife, came back, yay. So, but for my mom, like, hers was reservist also. Like, she was a lab technician, got all of her learning job traits from that, so. She loved the Army, absolutely loved it, because she didn't have to do college while doing the Army, so, it was a little easier, but, she was supportive of me joining. She said, oh, the Air Force pays more, but you can go with the Army since the recruiters are right here and ready for you to join. So
Yeah.
there's a convenience of that than having to track down whatever Air Force recruiter there is.
Yeah.
And on my dad's side, my dad was a hippie protesting the war, while my uncle was actually a colonel in it. So,
Really?
well, he was a lieutenant at the time of the World War, but became a colonel eventually. So, there's that. And my uncle, he's very happy I joined. He's like, oh, good for you, it will, help you grow up, get out there, learn about more of yourself than, having to stay at home with your family. You get to be on your own for the first time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Did you have any other family members who were part of that? One thing I did notice was that your sister was not. Is there any story about that, or?
My sister's crazy.
Oh, okay, all right.
Well, nah, it's more of her physical things. Like, her arm always pops out of her shoulder. She had been in the psych ward for a time after starting to get out of the high school. She went and got admitted in.
Yeah.
But she got out, and she's doing a lot better now. She's actually has her own job and hopes to get an apartment soon herself. So.
That's good.
She's not crazy.
Yeah.
We're all a little crazy.
Yeah.
We're all a little crazy. And it's mostly her physical ailments. Like, her arms, both of them were having the poppy thing, and then she had to get surgery on one of them. And she also tore her ACL. So there's that, too.
Yeah.
It's pain, but you learn how to live with it, and you get over it. But I wouldn't recommend somebody tearing their ACL joining the Army. It's not good to go through boot camp with a torn ACL.
Yeah. Well, on the topic of boot camp, what was boot camp like for you?
It was like a lot of physical work, just a lot of push-ups. For once in my life, I learned how to do more than 4 push-ups, so I was pretty happy about that. It was good, mostly. Like, I did pretty well in it. just most annoying thing is not the actual curriculum of boot camp, but people talking. People talking in formation is the worst thing. Just, that little bit of integrity of, it's not time to socialize. It goes back to like elementary school rules. Just don't talk when the teacher's talking. Or else you all have to go into push-up stance. That's the only difference, really.
So, would you say then that you enjoyed your experience at boot camp, or would you say that it was just boot camp?
I mean, when I first got into reception, I absolutely loved reception. I was able to sleep under sinks. It was great. But when I got into boot camp, like, the first day's the worst, then it gets a little better, and it's great. I didn't actually want boot camp to end for a good amount of time. I was like, I'm really enjoying this. And I even started really enjoying the physical activities too. Nick at Night was actually a lot of fun. For some people, they hated it. They were bleeding. I had a great time. I had a blast. I actually really liked it.
One of my cousins, he's also in the Army, and he was saying how boot camp is mostly mental. Would you agree, or would you say that?
Yeah, especially with other people. Sometimes, like, you just want to get angry at other people for talking. Just the whole talking thing made me very angry. But it is mental, like, in the sense that it's like you decide where to put your mind towards. You could be studying your cheat sheet, as you always want to, for getting extra points with the drill sergeants, and they test you and you get total awesomeness. You get to have your own little honor when you get through boot camp and get, like, player of the game, basically, in boot camp for memorizing just random knowledge about the Army.
So is there, like, a teaching side of boot camp that's not just like what we see on TV, which is, the push-ups and...
There's definitely teaching side. You do land nav, you learn, like, all the nice little things about the Army, like all the chain of command, all the nice little technical things about an M16. Even Fire Guard, you can study up on your stuff while there, which is why I really didn't mind Fire Guard at all. It's like, people make it seem bad to be up for an hour in the middle of the night, but it's really not that bad. It really isn't.
So, I understand some people say that being a woman in the Army and, like, in boot camp and things, it has a different experience for men. How would you rate, I guess, your experience of being a woman in the Army?
Well, it's a lot harder to go to the bathroom because there's 3 times more guys who can take you to the bathroom than women. So it's like, you keep asking your friends, hey, you want to go to the bathroom? They say, no, I just went with our other friend here like 10 minutes ago. I don't want to bring you to the bathroom. Whereas with guys, they're so ready. They're like, yeah, there's a million of us here, so one of us has to go to the bathroom. And that's about it, except for sometimes you'll have the random comment of, this is kind of weird. I don't think we should have females in combat MOSs, because I was a combat medic, so we're supposed to lift people. Some of the females were just very delicate. Like, some of them were 100 pounds. And they're trying to lift a guy who's twice their weight with 50 pounds of gear on. It just doesn't seem physically possible.
Yeah.
But for me, luckily, I'm a bit taller. I'm a bit, heavier. So it wasn't too hard for me personally. Yeah. But for some other females, it was a little harder for them, I feel.
So on that combat medic, what is the training for a combat medic?
Basically learn how to do everything you can before going into an ambulance or hospital. You are like the pre-ambulance. You gotta get that IV in there, make sure they stay alive in that nice little golden hour before, they croak. So we call it the golden hour when you can get there as soon on the scene. That one window of hour is that. You have to get the IV fluid in, get whatever they need patched up. Just stop that bleeding. That's like the main thing, is stop the bleeding. Like, that's pretty much a combat medic. And the lifts are huge. You gotta carry these people, like, a lot. I mean, in real life, if you're on a FOB, you're not the one carrying. It's some other guy, CLS, combat lifesavers, but they train you for it, which is good because you should know those carries. They're important.
Mhm.
And, you know, if you have a 300-pound guy dying and you're there, you gotta find some way to get this guy to safety if you're the only one. So.
Would you say that training then as a combat medic would have helped you with your civilian life then?
Oh yeah, you know, if something happens, you now know what to do. You know everything to do if anything happens. Like somebody gets hit by a car, you know exactly, you know, stop the bleeding. If they have maxillofacial trauma, you know not to shove a little nasal pharyngeal tube up there. So, you know.
So do you now know all the medical terms and everything? You ready to be a full doctor?
Pretty much. It's like you learn paramedic but aren't certified for paramedic. I definitely think they should certify all combat medics as paramedics as on the civilian side.
So now, kind of going into the civilian side, now you're at Salem State. How do you feel being a veteran at this school?
I feel fine. You know, it's like I definitely appreciated the veteran community because coming out of the Army, you don't realize not everybody knows that you had been through all this Army stuff. Yeah, people are gonna treat you exactly as they treat everybody else, and you know you have to have your own filter too. Gotta stop swearing so much. It's not the Army anymore. You can't say the F word after every single other sentence. So, yeah, there's that.
So when people look at you, do they immediately assume you're a veteran?
Oh,
or
no. And even with friends I've known for like, you know, when I'm coming out of the Army and I've known them for a good year, even then they don't know unless I specifically bring it up in a conversation, and even that, it might go in one ear and out the other.
So would you like being more acknowledged as a veteran, or do you enjoy kind of the incognito aspects of it?
It's definitely good to have a bit of an incognito aspect when meeting people that you don't know before. You know, what if they're a diehard pacifist and they think you're evil, or one of those Westboro Baptist people who full on, you know, protest Army funerals. But I definitely think it's nice for then your friends to like know that you're in the Army, because then they understand how busy you are, how like you might not be able to hang out on the weekends, or teachers will know that you have to sometimes miss a Friday class because drill, you know.
So kind of on that aspect, I know that this term can be very offensive to many people, but what do you think of the term weekend warrior?
Weekend warrior, I think it's like, it's not just a weekend warrior. I have to do my 2-mile runs. I have to do my push-ups. I have to do my sit-ups. I have to find an hour of the day, every day, to somehow like do something for my job on the weekend. That's once a month. So it's not exactly a weekend warrior. If it was that easy, if I just had one weekend to devote to the Army, that'd be great. But no, I have to devote every day until I'm out of college. I know it's hard.
So when we see posters and things for the Army Reserves that say 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, that's not true?
No. It'd be so easy if that's how it was. You gotta keep up with it. Like, you have to get all of your medical done, too. You have to get all that paperwork in. And if you lose your CAT card, your, like, ID card, you gotta wait, like, 6 months to get a new one. And that puts everything on hold. Everything. And you can lose so much from losing just one card out. And, you know, that's how you get your free T-passes. You can lose it so easily. So there's a lot more dedication than just 1 weekend a month.
Yeah. Now, as in the Army Reserves, as a member of the Army Reserves, when you see people being deployed, do you want to join them at all? Is there any wanting of that?
Sometimes, definitely, because, you know, then you don't have to deal with all the extra stuff at home. It's like you can get away. It's almost like a vacation. You can go off to somewhere else, read a book in 130-degree weather, and there you go. It's a little nice.
Yeah. So do you have any ideas of if you ever might be deployed?
Probably to Kuwait. That's what I'm describing here as Kuwait. You just go to there, read a book in 130-degree weather, do nothing, basically. If you go to Iraq or Afghanistan, you're actually doing stuff, and in, like, an active duty case, I wouldn't mind it because it would actually have me training my skills again. I would actually be doing my job I was trained to do, so I would like that. But yeah, for now it's just like get college done.
Yeah. On the topic of college, I noticed that you want to be a cybersecurity technician, and that's very different than being a combat.
Yeah. Well, I found out the hospital is just not for me. You know, there's too many preventative things that people do to themselves, and I don't think we teach preventative medicine enough in this country, at least. Like,
what kind of preventative medicine do you mean?
Like for diabetes too. That's like the perfect example. You know, all you do is have to cut out carbs. It's not even just soda, but pasta, bread, anything like that. You need your veggies, and some people they just straight up do not eat their veggies. It's just a change of lifestyle, and that doesn't happen overnight. You can't just change someone.
Yeah. So why cybersecurity then if you were not going into the hospital?
Well, sort of like a person, but it's a computer. It's something that you force to get fixed instead of having to work with them. You just fix them on your own.
Are you planning on doing that with the military at all, or are you hoping to go into a private firm with your cybersecurity?
Probably a private firm. I mean, unless I ever wanted to go active, I really feel at this point it would either go active or not. The reservist life is, like what I said, it's every day you have to dedicate some time, but then on top of that you also have your college.
So in college, do you find it difficult at all then to keep up with the Army Reserve and all the requirements necessary for it? Or have you been able to find time?
I mean, I can find time. It's just, you know, when you're expected to go to a 9 o'clock class and you're not home till like 6 p.m., 5 p.m., you have to do homework then. You have to make dinner, make food for yourself. Sometime you gotta eat. I actually carry a bag of trail mix so I don't starve during the day. And, you know, you gotta find time to do that. It's like a good 2 or 3 hours can be dedicated towards homework, and at that time you just want to go to bed. But, you know, you have to either wake up early or take a run at night then if you want to actually keep up with your exercise.
Now, kind of going back a bit, how did your family feel about you joining the Army Reserve and then going into college as opposed to going straight into the Army and going on to active duty and that kind of thing?
Well, they didn't want me to go active duty. I was thinking of switching to active while I was in there, but they were against the idea. They were like, oh no, you have to do college. And I was like, well, I think I can do it. And then now doing it, I'm like, oh, should have gone with active. I mean, they would play everything in full, more benefits, just, it would have been better going into active first and getting done the 4 years. 4 years actually goes by very fast. I'm already 3 years into the Army, and I'm like, how?
So, how much, I guess, support then did you get from your parents when you started joining into the military?
Well, my mom was absolutely for me being in the reserves. My dad was absolutely against me deploying at all. And even if I said, oh yeah, I would be interested in deploying, they're like, well, you're a combat medic, you'll be on the front lines. They definitely do not want me, like, over at Afghanistan or whatever, but I personally wouldn't be too against me doing that.
What about your uncles? You said that they were in the military
Yeah.
as well. Did they have any say in what you were going to do? Did they give you any input?
Pretty much was supportive of any of my decision. He said, you know, like, he's very proud of me just joining the military in general. Like, I make my decisions. He said, you know, like, I feel he sees it as me being mature and making my own decisions. That's how the military should be, is, you know, once you're in, you're an adult, you make your own decisions. But my parents, of course, being parents, they're going to still see me as, you know, their little girl, so.
Yeah. What about your grandfather? Did he have any say in what you're doing?
I never met my grandparents.
Oh, well, okay,
like I
then.
said, we have children at 40, so.
So, I guess, if you were to have your own children, what would you say to them joining the military?
I would say definitely go active. I would pretty much give them advice on my experience. I would say go for any branch you would feel passionate towards. If you're just doing it for the benefits, I mean, go for the Air Force. But if you want to like carry on family tradition, go to the Army. If you want to go a bit beyond or whatever, go with Marines, whatever you feel passionate towards, basically. Even Navy, because my other grandfather was in the Navy, so. Yeah, I have one in the Army, one in the Navy. Didn't meet either of them, but yeah.
Did you feel any pull to the other branches as well, or were you always set on the Army?
I always wanted to be in the Air Force just for the benefit idea, but then I was like, you know what? The Army seems to be a bit more on their game. Like, the recruiters are right there. They seem to really want people, and I want to be where I'm needed. So that's why I was like, I'm going with the Army.
Is that kind of why you chose combat medic as well, to be where you're needed?
Yeah, because they always need combat medics in the Army. I mean, there's no not need of medics. Everybody needs them.
So, if you were to be deployed overseas, and if you were in a combat zone, for instance, do you feel with the Army Reserve training that you are prepared for a combat?
Yeah, definitely. I actually feel like the reserves are kind of like trying to make me a little less, because we're an engineering unit. So we're more geared towards going to Kuwait, maybe some parts of Iraq, but there's really not much combat nowadays in Iraq. But I personally feel if I take the knowledge I have from advanced individual training, I would be very much ready for a combat situation, just from all the knowledge I learned there. We actually don't use needles at our reservist units, so again, it's like they're sort of desensitizing.
You don't use needles?
Yeah.
Really?
It's crazy. It's like they're trying to be like, okay, no, they're nerfing me. I feel they're nerfing me in the reserves.
Did they give you any explanation for it?
Just that we don't really go into combat. We're an engineering unit. It's just, we go to Kuwait. That's our thing.
I mean, that's what they're training you for.
Yeah, so.
So, like going back to training a little bit, what would you say your favorite part of training was?
Probably just being able to go into a leadership position. I loved being the platoon guide was very fun, and being able to be the leader when we'd go out to these sort of mock trainings, like where we'd have casualties, and I would be the person on the walkie-talkie being like, okay, we're going to storm this wall. You check first, and then you have all the people go around the wall, and then you go and find them. And it's very good to have these simulations. Really gets you ready for real life situations. To be able to have that little bit of leadership, it gives you a good experience to have responsibility. I was a tactical advisor, so tactical leader. And that was definitely good to learn how to use the walkie-talkies, to learn how to communicate efficiently over them. Definitely a good experience.
So then, on the flip side, what would be your least favorite part of basic and boot camp?
Standing there. I mean, we'd stand for 4 hours on end, just standing there, waiting for something to happen. When we'd get our uniforms inspected, we would be the last because my last name's Wilson. So we'd be standing there after everybody's gone, and then eventually we'd get inspected.
So I guess if you could go back, do it all over, would you still want to go into Army Reserves? Would you, because as you mentioned before, you were thinking about active duty, would you want to go do that?
I'd probably be more partial to active duty, but considering my family, how against they were for me to go into active, if I were to do it over again, I'd probably go with the Air Force, just because I'd feel they'd be more supportive of me, especially my dad. And it definitely if I went with the Air Force National Guard, they would have given me a full ride for college, which is what my parents wanted for me. Considering I was still 18 the time I went in, I'm still depending on my parents. They still expect me to depend on them, since my sister still lives with them and she's older than me. If I was older, I definitely would have gone into active duty with the Army, but at the age I was at, would have gone into Air Force National Guard.
So, as almost kind of a wrap-up question, just to try to tie the whole interview together, would you like to say anything to anybody that you think about the Army's reserves, about the Army in general, that you think people either should know or people should keep in mind, or even just something that would help this interview at all?
Well, if you think about the difference between my mom's experience and my experience, she used the reserve for job training, which made it a lot more flexible on her schedule. She was able to get free job training for her career. That's definitely a better way than to just go into reserves just for the college money, because that doesn't make sense. If you're going to go into the Army for college money, go with the National Guard. They'll give you like the full deal there. If you're going into the reserves, use it for just getting a foot in the civilian world. Or use it to gradually go away from active. You know, you could go active first, then go reserves. I wouldn't recommend just going in for the college money. It's really not for that.
It's not. Is it not necessarily that it's not worth it for that, or is that's just an inappropriate use of it?
It's an inappropriate use of it. If you're really wanting free college, go active. Do the 4 years. It's really not that long. I mean, you're doing 8 years reserves. It doesn't make sense. If you're ever going to go into the reserves at all, it really should be like how I said with my mom. With you just doing a job or a career, you can plan around that with your employer as well. Instead of with college, you have all these courses. At the same time, you have a job too, so then it's like you're working on weekends. You don't have as much flexibility as you would if you already went through college, or you can even get a higher pay grade if you go through college, and become an officer before you go into the Army. So I wouldn't recommend doing what I did. I wouldn't, no.
All right, well, I would like to thank you very much for this interview, and thank you very much for joining the Army Reserves.
Oh, thank you.